You know what's interesting? So many people think that if they just love harder, give more, show how much they care, then the other person will wake up and start valuing them. But that's not how it works. When someone doesn't value you, giving more of yourself is not the solution. In fact, it often makes things worse. It teaches the other person that they can keep showing up halfway and you'll still be there, giving them everything. Think about this for a second. If someone is already taking you for granted, what message do you send when you keep over-investing? You're saying, asterisk, hey, I'm okay with being treated like this. I'll still keep giving to you. I'll still make the effort. I'll still be available. Asterisk. And the sad truth is, people are rarely inspired to change when they're rewarded for the very behavior that's hurting the relationship. There's a dangerous trap that so many people fall into, especially those with a big heart. You see their potential. You hold on to the good moments. You remember how sweet they were in the beginning, and you keep thinking, asterisk, if I just hang on a little longer, maybe they'll go back to that. Maybe they'll start valuing me the way I deserve. Asterisk. But the longer you stay in that cycle, the more you lose touch with your own worth. And every time you overgive in the hope they'll see your value, you're actually making it easier for them not to. There's something powerful about pulling back when someone isn't showing up for you, not as a manipulation tactic, not to play games, but because your energy is precious and it should be invested where it's reciprocated. If someone doesn't value your time, your presence, your heart then continuing to pour yourself into them is like trying to water a dead plant. You can keep giving and giving, but nothing grows because they're not even trying to meet you halfway. We think loyalty means staying no matter what, that if we love someone, we're supposed to keep fighting even when they've stopped trying. But real love doesn't mean self-sacrifice. Real love includes self-respect. And part of self-respect is being able to say, asterisk, I'm not going to keep showing up for someone who's not showing up for me. Asterisk. Now I get it. The idea of pulling back feels scary, especially when you care deeply, especially when you've been emotionally invested for a long time. You feel like if you step away, if you stop giving, you'll lose them. But I want to reframe that for you. If your presence in their life depends on you doing all the work, then you're not in a relationship, you're in a performance. And eventually, you'll burn out from trying to keep it alive on your own. When someone doesn't value you, the most powerful thing you can do is stop over-investing. Stop initiating every conversation. Stop bending over backward to make plans. Stop making excuses for their lack of effort. You've got to give them space to notice the absence of your energy. Sometimes it's only in your silence that they truly hear you. Only in your distance that they realize what they're losing. And if they don't miss you, if they don't step up then, that tells you everything you need to know. See, when you stop over-investing, you make space for clarity. You stop clouding the situation with your constant effort, and you start seeing the reality for what it is. Is this person capable of showing up for you? Or have you just been carrying the relationship on your own? And more importantly, you give yourself a chance to reclaim your own energy, to pour that time and love back into yourself, to reconnect with your own value, instead of begging someone else to recognize it. You don't need to chase someone into treating you right. You don't need to keep proving why you're worthy of their effort. Your worth isn't up for negotiation. You show someone how to value you, not by explaining it over and over, but by demonstrating what you will and won't accept. If they care, they'll notice. If they don't, you've just saved yourself from investing even more in the wrong person. The hardest part is breaking the habit of overgiving, because a part of you still hopes, still believes that if you just love them enough, they'll come around. But love isn't enough if it's only flowing one way. It has to be mutual. It has to be respected. And if it's not, no amount of giving will fix that. So pull back not to punish them, but to protect yourself. Stop overgiving not to create drama, but to restore your balance. Step away not to test them, but to reclaim your peace. Because the moment you stop over-investing in someone who's under-investing in you is the moment you start getting your power back. And that's when everything starts to change. You can tell someone what you want all day long. You can explain your standards, outline your needs, and even cry about how you're being treated. But if your actions don't reflect those words, they'll never truly respect them. The truth is, people listen far more to what you do than what you say. And when someone doesn't value you, the most powerful move you can make isn't to shout louder, argue harder, or plead for better treatment. It's to start living by your standards, not just talking about them. See, there's a mistake so many of us make. We try to communicate our worth by proving how loyal we are, how patient we can be. We stay longer, give more, tolerate more, hoping that the other person will eventually see how rare we are and decide to step up. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When you continuously give without receiving, you don't look strong. You look like someone who's willing to settle. Not because you are someone who should settle, but because that's the message your behavior sends. And people respond to that. If someone in your life doesn't see your value and you keep showing up the same way, available, forgiving, endlessly understanding, then why would they ever change? There's no urgency. There's no consequence. You're still there. The world hasn't shifted for them. They still get to benefit from your presence while giving you less than what you deserve. That's a dynamic you teach them without even realizing it. And once they've learned that dynamic, they stick to it because it works for them. But when you start to live by your standards, truly live them, it creates a shift. A standard isn't just a preference you mention in conversation. It's a line in the sand that shows people how to treat you. When you say, I want a man who makes me feel secure, consistent, and prioritized, but then keep engaging with someone who's inconsistent, hot and cold, and only makes plans last minute, you're not showing your standard, you're betraying it. And the person you're with picks up on that. They might not even be doing it consciously, but they learn, I don't actually have to give her more. She'll stay anyway. Asterisk. On the other hand, when you show someone that you're not afraid to walk if your needs aren't met without the drama, without the threats, just a calm and confident step back, it wakes them up. Because suddenly, your words aren't just noise. They're backed by action. They're real. And in that moment, they're forced to ask themselves, do I want to lose this person? Asterisk. This is where the power lies, not in convincing someone you're worth more, but in removing yourself from situations where you're treated like less. That's when someone either rises to meet your standard or fades away. And either outcome is a win for you. Now, let me be clear, this isn't about punishing people. It's not about playing games or making them guess what you want. It's about clarity. It's about integrity. And most importantly, it's about being congruent. When you start aligning your actions with your words, everything changes. You stop sending mixed signals. You stop living in the gray area where someone can keep you around without truly committing. You start becoming someone who respects themselves enough to say, if you want access to my heart, my time, and my energy, you have to meet me where I am. That doesn't mean you're cold. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you value yourself too much to remain in relationships where your needs are chronically unmet. It means you don't mistake potential for consistency or chemistry for commitment. And that mindset, that's magnetic because it's rare. Most people are scared to enforce their standards. Why? Because they're afraid of the loss that might come with it. They think, if I walk away, what if I lose him? What if I never find someone else? Asterisk. But here's the thing. The longer you stay with someone who doesn't value you, the more you delay finding someone who does. Every day you spend hoping someone changes is a day you could have been investing in someone who already gets it. And listen, the right person doesn't need to be dragged into valuing you. They don't need to be taught basic respect. You won't have to give them an instruction manual on how to show up. They'll want to. Because when you embody self-respect, it filters who comes into your life. It repels people who just want to waste your time, and it attracts people who are serious. So instead of thinking, how do I get him to change? Asterisk. Ask yourself, am I living in a way that reflects my standards? Asterisk. Because when you do, people will have no choice but to meet you at that level or watch you walk away. When someone doesn't value you, the most powerful thing you can do isn't to convince them, it's to start behaving like someone who knows they're valuable. If you want someone to change how they treat you, you have to create emotional contrast. Most people don't realize that when there's no difference between how someone feels when they treat you well versus when they treat you poorly, there's no reason for them to behave any differently. Think about it. If you're always available, always warm, always giving even, when someone is neglectful, inconsiderate, or inconsistent, what emotional incentive are you giving them to step up? Human beings are motivated by contrast. We move toward pleasure and away from pain. If someone can mistreat you or undervalue you and still get the same version of you, they start to assume that's just the way the relationship works. There's no risk, no consequence. You've made it comfortable for them to give you the bare minimum. But when someone senses contrast, when they notice that the energy shifts based on how they show up, they start to wake up. They realize that your warmth isn't a guarantee, it's a reward. Your attention isn't a given, it's earned. Your affection isn't a default setting, it's something they get access to when they value it. It's not about playing games. This isn't about manipulating someone or trying to make them chase you through punishment or distance. It's about aligning your behavior with your standards. If someone is making an effort being present, communicating with intention, showing you respect, you meet that effort with your natural energy. You're warm, you're available, you're supportive. That's your default mode, because that's who you are when you feel safe and seen. But when someone stops showing up with effort, when they become dismissive, flaky, or emotionally lazy, that same version of you shouldn't still be on display. The version of you they get in that moment should reflect their behavior not as revenge, but as clarity. You're not mean. You're not cold. You're just not overextending for someone who's not even meeting you halfway. You don't keep initiating conversations with someone who doesn't reply. You don't keep rearranging your life for someone who cancels last minute. You don't keep showing up as a partner for someone who's acting like a stranger. And the key is not to explain this contrast every time. You don't have to announce it. You just live it. You let your behavior become the mirror. People pay far more attention to what they feel than what they're told. You can say, I deserve more 1,000 times, but if you continue to act the same, those words lose their power. If, on the other hand, someone feels that you shift your energy when they aren't bringing theirs, they start to realize they can't keep coasting. They see the emotional difference between being close to you and being disconnected from you. That difference is what drives change. But if there's no emotional consequence to their lack of effort, if they feel just as connected to you, whether they treat you like a priority or like an afterthought, then why would they change? Why would they risk doing the work when you've shown them that you'll show up no matter what? Emotional contrast is about communicating value without words. It's about saying how you show up matters through how you respond rather than how you lecture. It's not a punishment, it's a boundary. It's not silence, it's space. It's not coldness, it's clarity. And clarity is powerful. You're not asking someone to read your mind. You're simply showing them what earns closeness with you. You're letting them feel the natural response to how they treat you. When someone is consistent, they get a consistent you. When someone is affectionate, they get affection in return. But when they pull back, they find space, not neediness, not chasing, just space. And in that space, they begin to realize the cost of not stepping up. This is especially hard when you care about someone. When you love someone, you want to give, you want to nurture, you want to bridge the gap, but you can't keep feeding connection when it's one-sided. That doesn't make you generous, it makes you exhausted. It chips away at your self-worth. Every time you reward inconsistency with consistency or indifference with effort, you're telling that person they don't need to be better to keep access to you. But when you embody emotional contrast, you send a different message. You say, I love deeply, but I don't love blindly. I care, but I won't carry. I'm generous, but I'm not reckless with my energy. You create the space where someone else can feel the difference between your presence and your absence. That contrast is where realization happens. It's where people decide whether they're willing to grow or whether they're happy to stay the same and lose you in the process. You don't need to beg someone to change. You don't need to write long messages explaining what you deserve. The people who are capable of growth will sense the change in your energy and want to adjust. They'll feel, if you're in a situation where you feel like you're constantly giving and he's just there, not showing up, not valuing you the way you deserve, and here's something you absolutely need to hear. You cannot be afraid of losing the wrong person. I get it. That fear, it creeps in quietly. You start rationalizing his behavior. Maybe he's just busy, you tell yourself. Maybe he's been hurt before. Maybe he needs time. And you wait. You wait for the message that takes longer to come. You wait for him to finally get it. You wait for that version of him that he showed you in the beginning. But let me ask you this. How long do you plan to wait? Asterisk. Because every day you spend clinging to someone who doesn't see your value is a day you betray yourself. We stay in these half relationships because we're scared of starting over, scared we won't find better, scared that if we walk away, we'll never know if he could have changed. But here's the truth. If he truly valued you, he wouldn't need you to walk away to figure it out. He would have already been showing up differently. Now, I'm not saying people can't grow. They absolutely can. But growth only happens when there's pressure, when there's a real risk of losing something meaningful. If you're always available, always understanding, always forgiving, no matter how little effort he gives, then there's no urgency for him to do better. Why would he change if he gets all of you while giving you so little of him? The irony is we fear losing someone even when they're already acting like they don't care if they lose us. Think about that. You're holding on to someone who has repeatedly shown you, either through silence or inconsistency or emotional distance, that your presence isn't being cherished. And yet, you're terrified of letting go, terrified of walking away, when what you should be terrified of is staying in a dynamic that slowly kills your self-worth. You want to inspire change. You want him to start valuing you. Then stop being so afraid of walking away. That fear is the very thing that's keeping you stuck. Because when you're scared to lose someone, you'll twist yourself into knots to keep them. You'll say yes when you mean no. You'll overlook red flags. You'll shrink your needs to make him comfortable. And every time you do that, you teach him, I don't have to show up for her. She'll always be there. Asterisk. That's not love. That's survival. And relationships built on survival never thrive. You have to be willing to walk. You have to mean it, not as some manipulation tactic, not as some dramatic ultimatum, but from a grounded place of knowing who you are and what you deserve. When you finally reach that place, when you stand up and say, if you're not going to meet me where I am, I'm not going to keep dragging this forward, you shift the entire dynamic. He'll either feel the loss and rise up, or he won't. And either way, you win. Because here's what happens when you stop fearing the loss. You start reclaiming your power. You begin to show up differently. Your energy changes. You're no longer needy or anxious or walking on eggshells. You're not asking him to choose you. You're watching what he does to earn you. And that shift, it's magnetic. Men respect women who respect themselves, period. If a guy knows you're scared to lose him, he holds the cards. But when he senses that you're not going to settle, that you're not going to be someone's emotional backup plan, that you'd rather be alone than in something that drains you, that's when he has to level up. That's when he has to decide, am I going to match her energy or am I going to lose her completely? Asterisk. Now, here's where a lot of people trip up. They hear this and think, okay, I'll walk away and that'll make him change. But the goal isn't to make him change. The goal is to stop betraying yourself, to honor your worth regardless of what he does next. Because change rooted in fear of losing you, isn't always sustainable. But if he changes because he realizes your love is a gift, not an entitlement, that's where transformation starts. If walking away makes him step up, great. If it doesn't, even better, because it means he was never going to. And now you're not wasting more time trying to pour love into a cup with a hole in it. Look, we all want to be chosen. We want that connection, that spark, that feeling of being seen. But being chosen by someone who doesn't value you isn't a win. It's a slow erosion of everything that makes you shine. You deserve more than breadcrumbs. You deserve someone who's all in, someone who doesn't make you question where you stand, someone who doesn't need to be convinced of your worth because they see it and they protect it. When someone doesn't value you, it's easy to fall into this loop of trying to explain, justify, and argue your worth to them. You start thinking, if I can just get him to understand how much this hurts, if I can just find the right words, maybe he'll see what he's doing wrong and change. But here's the hard truth. People don't change because you keep telling them to. They change because they feel the consequences of not changing. And that's where so many people go wrong. They become a megaphone instead of a mirror. You don't need to keep repeating how you feel if your behavior already communicates it. If you're in a situation where you constantly have to say, I don't feel prioritized, or I feel like I'm the only one making the effort and nothing is changing, then saying it louder isn't going to make a difference. What will? Reflecting back to them their own energy. Asterisk. That's the game changer. Let me give you a real world example. Say you're always the one reaching out first, always initiating plans, always checking in, and he barely reciprocates. You've told him how it makes you feel, and he says he'll do better, but nothing really shifts. So instead of having yet another talk about it, you stop. You stop initiating. You stop texting first. You stop filling in the gaps he leaves with your own effort, and you wait. Now, this is the uncomfortable part because it requires patience, self-respect, and the courage to hold your ground. You might be tempted to jump back in the moment he doesn't notice, but that defeats the purpose. What you're doing is creating space for him to notice your absence, space for him to recognize that connection isn't automatic, it's maintained by effort. And if he doesn't step up when you pull back, that tells you everything. People respond to behavioral feedback far more than verbal feedback. When you shift your actions to match the level of effort you're receiving, you're no longer trying to convince someone to value you, you're giving them the chance to show whether they do or not. That's powerful. Let's say he cancels on you last minute again. You've told him before how that makes you feel, how it makes you feel unimportant. But instead of launching into another emotional speech about reliability and respect, you simply respond differently this time. You don't react with frustration. You don't try to rebook. You don't even try to make him feel guilty. You just go on with your evening without trying to make him the center of it. The next time he tries to make plans, you're not immediately available. Not as a game, not as punishment, but because you've redirected your energy toward people and things that do show up for you. And here's the kicker. When you do this, a man will either realize, I've been messing up. She's not just saying it anymore as she's showing it. I could actually lose her. Or he'll continue with the same behavior, confirming that you were never truly a priority to begin with. Either way, you win. This isn't about manipulation. This isn't about silent treatment or trying to play hard to get. This is about alignment. Your words say, I deserve respect and effort. And your behavior needs to echo that. When the two don't match, when your words are high value, but your actions tolerate low effort, that's when you lose your power. But when your behavior mirrors exactly what you're getting from someone else, they're forced to look at themselves. They're forced to realize that they can't just slide by on charm, on promises, or on your endless grace. They either rise or they fall out of your life. There's a calm strength in no longer arguing for your worth. It's the difference between someone begging for change and someone quietly walking away from what no longer serves them. You don't need to throw a dramatic exit. You don't need to post cryptic quotes on social media. You simply act differently. You pull back. You focus inward. You remember that love is a two-way street, and if you're the only one walking, it's not love, it's labor. And here's something else to understand. Sometimes people won't even realize how much you are doing until you stop doing it. When you reflect someone's energy back to them, they get a clear picture of what it looks like without your constant effort, without your messages, without your planning, without your emotional availability. And that's when the truth surfaces. If they care, they'll feel the difference and they'll move. If they don't, well, now you know. And knowing is far better than staying in the dark, hoping for change that's never coming. So if he's not valuing you, stop trying to lecture your way into his heart. Don't beg for consistency. Don't demand attention. Just mirror what you're getting. Show, don't tell. Let your silence, your distance, your changed behavior do the talking. People hear that far more clearly than words ever could. When you feel like someone isn't valuing you, the instinct is to do more, be nicer, be more available, make more effort. We think, asterisk, maybe if I just show them how amazing I am, they'll see it. They'll change. Asterisk. But the truth is, the moment you start chasing someone who's not meeting you halfway, you're sending the exact message that tells them they don't have to change. They don't have to show up better. They already have access to you, even while giving you the bare minimum. That's not attractive. That doesn't inspire change. That just teaches them that this dynamic works, that you'll keep showing up, no matter how little they give. But when you stop chasing and start attracting, everything shifts. Attraction isn't about doing more. It's about being more of who you already are without bending, shrinking, or adjusting yourself to fit into someone else's lack of effort. You become magnetic when you embody confidence, self-respect, and certainty in what you deserve. That's what draws people in. That's what makes someone sit up and realize, asterisk, I can't take this person for granted. I have to be better if I want to be close to them. Asterisk. See, the difference between chasing and attracting is energy. Chasing says, I need you to see me. I need you to validate me. I need your love so I can feel worthy. Attracting says, I already know my worth. You're either aligned with it or you're not. One comes from fear, the other comes from power. And when you operate from that place of power, everything changes, not just in how they respond to you, but in how you feel about yourself. We're often told to go after what we want in life, and that's true in many cases. But in love, when it comes to effort and emotional investment, going after someone who's not valuing you isn't noble, it's self-abandonment. It's putting their potential above your peace. And you know what happens when you do that? You start becoming less of yourself. You become anxious, second-guessing every text you send, every move you make, wondering what you need to do next to keep their attention. That's not love. That's fear dressed up as effort. Real attraction happens when you show someone you're not afraid to walk away from what doesn't serve you. That's when they start questioning how they've been treating you. That's when they see the gap between how they've been showing up and what you truly deserve. But they'll never see that if you're always in their inbox, always picking up the phone, always making the plans, always bending just to keep the peace. The moment you shift into attraction energy, you start aligning with people who want to step up. You stop being available for breadcrumbs. You stop being accessible to anyone who's not bringing real effort to the table. And maybe, just maybe, the person you're thinking about does have it in them to rise to your level. But they won't if they don't have to. They won't if they think you'll stick around no matter what. So instead of waiting for them to change, you change the energy. You stop chasing conversations. You stop initiating plans with someone who barely shows up for you. You start pouring that energy into yourself, into your passions, your goals, your joy, your growth. Because when someone sees that your life is full, that you're not waiting around for them, they're forced to confront their own inconsistency. And if they care, they'll match you. If they don't, they'll fade. Either way, you win. And let's be clear, this isn't about playing games. This isn't about pretending you don't care when you do. It's about living like you matter, acting like you matter, deciding deep in your soul that your love is a privilege, not a given, that you are not an option. You are a standard. And that standard doesn't change based on someone's potential or charm or how great the connection that could be someday. It's based on how they treat you now. Asterisk. When you carry that energy, it becomes undeniable. People feel it. And the right person, the one who's ready, who's emotionally mature, who sees you clearly, they'll be drawn to that. They'll lean in. They'll pursue. And not because you chased them into it, but because you inspired it by standing in your power. If someone isn't valuing you right now, stop trying to convince them. Start showing them, not with words, not with tears, not with lectures, with your energy, your presence, your boundaries. Let them see what distance feels like. Let them feel the absence of your effort. And if they don't come closer, let that be the answer you needed. Sometimes silence speaks louder than anything you could say. Because the truth is, when you stop chasing and start attracting, the people who aren't meant for you fall away. And the ones who are meant to stay, they choose you without hesitation. Asterisk. Let your energy do the talking.